Let's bring in Mike Wilson. He's the president of Friends of the Historic Hamtramck Stadium. Mike, thank you for being with us this morning.
Hey, thank you for having me.
I will say, before I saw your name on the guest list, I didn't even know this was still in existence here. So, for our viewers and listeners who aren't familiar with the stadium in the ballpark, can you tell us a little bit about it and the history?
Yeah, it's kind of a hidden jewel. I'm a local baseball coach too, and I've been active in baseball quite a while in this area. But many times when I mention the stadium, people were kind of lost in the sense that they never knew that there was a Negro League Stadium located in the city of Hamtramck. So the stadium was built in 1930, and it was primarily built for Negro League Baseball, and the fact that at that particular time, Negro League players couldn't play in the major leagues. You had a lot of locals from the Detroit area and the Hamtramck community that would come down and support the games. That was their form of entertainment back in the 1930s and in the early 40s.
Mike Wilson with us. He's the president of the Friends of the Historic Hamtramck Stadium with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. So, are games still being played in the stadium, or is it now more of a museum space and a historic space, providing the great history of Negro League Baseball in the Detroit area?
Well, currently, the Friends of Historic Hamtramck Stadium, which is a nonprofit organization, came up with the idea because of our historian, Gary Gillette, who was part of the Friends of Historic Hamtramck Stadium, found out about the significance of it and the relevance of it back in the early 1900s. But in any event, the organization was formed to be able to restore the stadium, because at that time, well, back in the last 9 or 10 years, Hamtramck was considering the possibility of tearing the structure down, because it hadn't been used since maybe the late 80s. I think in the 80s it was used primarily for maybe some of the high school teams in the area used it, St. Florian, St. Ladislaw, Hamtramck High, and it was also being used for American Legion games and Pony League games. But since the late 1980s, the field was just laying there dormant, collecting weeds. So Hamtramck had considered tearing it down, but the Friends of Hamtramck Stadium came along and came up with the idea of trying to raise money to restore the stadium back to its prominence.
So I would imagine that is requiring a fundraising effort. Where does the organization stand in that regard?
Yes, we instituted a patronicity fundraiser campaign last year in 1919. I'm sorry, in 2019. Now I'm going back another 100 years. But in 2019, and which was primarily designed to be able to redevelop the field itself, the playing surface, and the other part of that, which is phase two, was to be able to fundraise to possibly restore the grandstands, the original grandstands. So we've had 3 or 4 different organizations that have kind of pulled up to the pump, so to speak, and helped us as far as donating significant funds toward restoring the grandstand. So the field playing surface is just about done. We were originally going to start, our plan was to start in late March, early April, but due to the pandemic, unfortunately, because of the governor's mandate, we couldn't start then. Our contractors weren't able to start until early July. So the field surface itself, the field was, we had it laser graded. We brought in a clay sand mix, which is called Dura Edge, which is one of the top clay sand mixes now for sandlot fields. Actually, 28 fields in the major leagues are comprised, the infields are comprised of Dura Edge clay sand mix. And then also we had sod donated for the infield and the foul territories areas by Hillcrest Farms, sod. So the field itself is just about done, but the grandstands will, because of the significant donations that we've gathered, which is going to take close to $2.5 million to restore the grandstands. That project, redevelopment project, it could possibly start in the fall, but it looks like it may not start until early spring. So our plan is to start programming and to get people on the field at the latest next late May or next June of 2021.
Mike, from a historic perspective, the Detroit Stars did play baseball in the historic Hamtramck Stadium. What other famous Negro League players or other teams were featured in the stadium in its great history in the local area?
Another team that played there was the Detroit Wolves. The field was developed initially for the Detroit Stars because actually the Detroit Stars played at Mack Park, which was over on Mack and Fairfield in Detroit. And what happened was, and Mack Park was built in 1914, but back in 1929, while the Detroit Stars were playing there, the Kansas City Monarchs were in town for a doubleheader, and they had several days of significant rains that took place. And then because of the fact that on July 7th of 1929, they didn't want the doubleheader to be rained out. So the owner at that time, which was Joe Rosnick, Joe had the grounds crew actually pour gasoline on the infield to be able to make sure the field was dry for play. And afterwards, some of the grounds crew members ended up storing the gasoline up under the grandstands. And unfortunately, somebody came by with a lit cigarette, and the lit cigarette butt ignited. And what happened consequently was the storage area and the grandstands actually were engulfed in flames, and the wooden bleachers were destroyed. So the Detroit Stars finished playing that year, but without grandstands. And then Joe Rosnick decided to build a brand new stadium in Hamtramck. So the Detroit Stars played there in 1930 up until 32. And then because of the Great Depression coming into existence, they fell on hard times. They actually ended up closing down the Negro National Leagues at that time, and the East-West League National Negro Leagues came into play, and the Detroit Wolves started playing there in 1932. Well, they kind of fell on hard times. So in 1930, after 1932 season, 1933, the American Negro Leagues came into existence, and the Detroit Stars came back and finished up playing at Historic Hamtramck Stadium throughout, I think 1937 was when the Detroit Stars stopped playing at Hamtramck Stadium.
So much history in our own backyards. I'd like to get your feelings and your take on what we are seeing with athletes around the country, including here in Michigan, and their stance against racial injustice. Here we are, how many years later, and this is such a big conversation still.
Yeah, it's it's a shame that a lot of individuals that play today do not know about the Negro Leagues and what those individuals went through attempting to fulfill the dream of playing Major League Baseball. I mean, the fact that there was a gentleman's agreement that was made back in the early 1900s because of the fact that racism was rampant back then, and the owners' general agreement made sure or kept Negroes from playing at that particular time. They were ostracized totally, and so due to the fact that because of ignorance, a lot of individuals didn't realize that these individuals had gifts and talents that they would be able to compete against anybody at that particular time. As a matter of fact, during that time, when the Negro League players would play Major League players in all-star games, 60% of those games were won by Negro League players, all-star players, believe it or not. But in this day and age, like I said, I've been coaching for many, many years. Many players want to be able to play against the best. And these individuals that I encounter, I mean, when you're playing a team sport and everybody's pulling in the same direction for a common goal, there is no color. There's just team. And most individuals that I come into contact with in travel baseball, on high school baseball, even collegiate baseball and training athletes, they want to play against the best and they want to be the best that they can possibly be. So in team sports, typically, there is no color line or no color barrier, in my opinion.
To the ball players or to just fans in general, what do you tell them about the history of this team and how it's shaped the game today?
Well, we at Historic Hamtramck Stadium, we have a goal and a plan to be able to teach Negro League history, teach. We're also at the stadium going to have all kind of interpretive exhibits. We're going to be putting together Negro League curriculum to take into the schools. There'll be kiosks also there, educational kiosks there on the grounds. So, we plan to be able to teach the history, and so individuals can learn about the significance of what the Negro League players brought to the party as far as the history of baseball. I mean, I've seen recently where Major League Baseball, number one, has listed on MajorLeagueBaseball.com that Hamtramck Stadium is one of the 17 most significant areas to visit regarding Negro League history, as well as they're visiting the possibility of Negro League players being able to their stats being able to also be in Major League Baseball record books to go alongside the current Major League Baseball and the prior Major League Baseball players. But 17 individuals that played at Hamtramck Stadium over the years are currently in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. Those are all Negro League players. They're in the Hall of Fame now.
That's incredible to me. Mike Wilson, President, Friends of Historic Hamtramck Stadium. Has it been hard for you and the organization to try to get the money that you need to continue this project during the pandemic, because so many people are financially conscious right now?
Yes and no. I mean, there's a lot of individuals that when they hear of and find out the significance and the history behind this stadium, a lot of people are coming on board in terms of extending their support and making donations. I mean, of course, we always need more donations. We're looking to add more things. We want the stadium to be, we want it to be first class, and we want it to be high tech. So we want to have electronic high tech scoreboards, and we want to have custom dugouts and all those things that make it on par with the current stadiums around the country. So we're looking for donations. I mean, individuals can go to our website if they're interested in donating, which is www.hamtramckstadium.org, as well as volunteers. We're always looking for more help and support in that regard.
So when you need volunteers, what kind of volunteers? What do you need them to have skills in?
To help out with our clinics, we put on every spring and fall, we put on free sports clinics for youth in the community. So softball, baseball, soccer for boys and girls. We'll need volunteers to come out and help us administratively, or if they have gifts or talents or skill sets in those particular sports. We're looking for volunteers in that regard to help out.
Mike Wilson with us, President, Friends of Historic Hamtramck Stadium. If I drive by the site right now, what does it look like?
Well, if you drive by currently, you'll see our grounds crew, the Hamtramck Stadium grounds crew, which is a volunteer group. They used to be the volunteer group they were called the Navens Field grounds crew. They were at the old Tiger Stadium. And then that old Tiger Stadium was bought up by PAL, and they put turf down. But currently they are our grounds crew there at Hamtramck Stadium, and they're there irrigating the field every day, without question, 7 days a week. And you'll see that field it looks like you're at Comerica Park. If you drive out there now, you'll see that field looks exactly like Comerica Park. You'll probably want to go out there and take some batting practice or field some ground balls.
I'm not that talented, trust me, but I love having the time to speak with you this morning. I love your passion, and thank you for keeping this topic alive and sharing the story of the Detroit Stars and the Hamtramck Stadium. For everyone out there, if you want to get involved, hamtramckstadium.org. Mike Wilson with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. Hopefully you'll see a bump in some interest following this interview, because you guys are doing amazing work. Thank you so much for your passion and your time and all that you're doing for the community.
Well, thank you so much for having me and for what you do. And may all your listeners have a blessed day and weekend.